everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you a bleeding design that is for brains. So this is the brains category of Helen and my collaboration. So hers is a brain with a spinal cord coming down and a little bow, so she took a very cute take on the brain theme, and I went very freaky and I have this green zombie cat that's almost so zombie you can't even hardly tell it's a cat anymore. And then I have these brains with a little blood-filled pipette underneath, and you squeeze the pipette and then the blood oozes out, which is just so cool. And I showed this one to Melody. She got to watch the footage, or she got to watch it live when I was squeezing the blood out for the video, and I told her daddy later and he goes, that is the type of thing you don't show her. And yes, it is. You liked it, didn't you? When we had the blood nail? Yeah, you thought it was cool. You know, yeah, you did get to see it. So I hope you guys like this as much as Miss Melody and I do. And don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well.
I'm going to begin with an overlay of clear acrylic on this nail to make sure that it is nice and strong. It'll support the 3D that's going on top of it and to support the pipette. So the little blood capsule underneath the nail is called a pipette, and it needs something that it'll glue down to and really attach to. And if it's just that clear plastic tip instead of something a little bit thicker like acrylic or hard gel, it just won't have enough support to hold on, and it'll be more prone to leaking, which won't give you that really cool effect at the end. So after I have all of that clear, filed and shaped, I'm going to apply a layer of black gel polish over the nail, cure it, and then apply some gel sealer and cure it again. And now I'm going to create a decent sized hole right in the middle of the nail. So this is going to be for your pipette, and I've done a couple of these in the past, so I know what size. Otherwise, you can take your pipette and fit it to make sure that it's the right size. But now I'm going to take and I'm going to paint the top of an eyedropper with some clear builder gel, cleanse it after it's cured. Then I'm going to cleanse it and I can pop it right off, and you've got a nice little dome shape. So I'm going to glue that dome onto the nail over the top of that hole that we carved. And then I'm going to start sculpting my kitty cat on the bottom half of the dome. So with green acrylic, we're just going to begin sculpting. And if you want to make it more obviously a cat, because it's sort of in the zombie phase where you don't quite know what kind of animal it is because it's so sort of deformed and green and goofy looking. If you want it to be like, okay, this is without question a cat, then I would not use green. I would use a more classic cat color like gray or brown or orange. But otherwise, if you do like the kind of crazy zombie freaky look that I was going for, green is a lovely color to sculpt this zombie with. So I'm going to pull some of that green acrylic out. So as it's beginning to really kind of solidify and firm up on me, you can see that I use the belly of my brush to pull it out on the sides to give her a little bit wider cheeks. And be prepared that it is going to take a lot of acrylic to smooth out that shape from the height of the dome and then back down to the nail. You don't want to have this like really weird bulge at the top of the head. You want it to look very natural. So as you can see, I applied multiple layers of acrylic to build up that transition so that it doesn't look quite so strange. I'm going to take the tip of my brush to carve in just a very gentle eye socket area for my cat. I want her to have those really like sunken in looking eyes. So carving in those little bits of an eye socket really, really help lend themselves to a sunken in zombie type appearance. I'm going to sculpt in her little kitty cheeks with yet more of that green acrylic. And at this particular stage, anybody looking at this, if they could guess it was a cat, I would probably have to give them some kind of award because it does not look cattish, at least to me, at least not yet. And then I've got the other little cheek for my kitty cat. As you could see, I took a toothpick and I poked little whisker holes. If you wanted to, one cool thing that I didn't do is you could take little pieces of wire that were all bent and zigzaggy, and you could stick those in to actually give her some really three-dimensional whiskers. That would be an option. I'm going to add a little bit of a bridge of a nose down from the brow bone and then up and over the top of the cheeks to kind of finish that area off. And then add just a little bit more to the brow bone to smooth out any transitions if you need to. That's one of those steps that may or may not be necessary. It depends on, how the rest of it was blended out. Add a little bit more to her chin. Just keep adding things until you're happy with it is basically my rule of thumb. If you are sculpting something and all of a sudden you're like, you know what? You step back, you look at it, you're like, hey, this looks pretty good, then put the brush down. If you're happy with it, then, call it a day, because it's really easy to actually mess something up by taking it too far. So it's up to you as far as how much you want to do. So after I have her body done, then I'm going to switch to a darker shade of green, and I'm going to start doing some shading on the cat. If you're not using a green for a color scheme, then a darker shade of whatever color it is that you are using. So a gray, maybe you'd use a darker gray or black. Orange, use a darker brown. If you're sculpting a black cat, I wouldn't have painted this nail black to start with. And, it's hard to shade black because, it's already as dark as it can get. So then you're just going to do a little bit of shading around where the brains start. Just a little bit of that darker green color right along the top of the head there, a little bit on those eyebrows. And then with yellow acrylic, we're going to be sculpting her eyes. So just take fairly firm beads of yellow acrylic to place those down, because you want them to look kind of bulbous. And so sculpt them, push them in from side to side, make sure that they don't flow out, but they have taller sides on them. And then we're going to be sculpting her ears on a nail form backing. So lay down 2 medium beads of that same green acrylic or whatever color you're using, and then let them start to kind of set up a little bit, and then stretch them into a triangle. You don't need really sharp edged triangles, but a little bit softer version of a triangle is perfect. And then you're going to pat them out a little bit so that they're nice and flat, reshape them again. As you can see, I rounded out the edges intentionally so that they weren't quite that sharp. And then go back to your cat, and when the ears are solid enough that you can pick them up, you're going to pick them up off the nail form backing, and you may have to wait 30, 40 seconds, a minute. It depends on so many different factors as to how long it is before you can pick them up and they're the right stage. But then attach them to the nail so that the ears get hooked to the zombie cat right at the place where the brains are. So right at that edge between forehead and brains. So there's the first one and there's the second one. The second one is a little bit more cured than the first one, so it caused me some extra grief, but I got it. Then I'm going to secure those ears to the nail with some more of that green acrylic. The other thing you want to do is, I never mentioned this, but you're going to want to secure and fill in any gaps around that clear dome around the back. So right along that area where the dome meets the black that you can see at the top. After I have those ears all finished, I'm going to be adding a couple little things with white acrylic. I call these straggle teeth. One of my cats who passed away about 2 years ago, not quite, maybe, she had straggle teeth, and they just cracked me up because she just had one, especially when she was older. She had one tooth that always stuck out. It was the cutest thing. Some people think it looks, weird or goofy, but I think it's really cute when kitty cats have a little straggle tooth. But then I'm going to take some acrylic paint, and I'm going to be doing all the shading on the cat. If you want to make it look extra feline, you can do some little bits of fur texture with your brush. I did some of it, not a whole ton, but as you can see right there, just a little bit of that, those little fur lines. But to me, if a cat is in this stage of zombiehood, it probably doesn't have as much fur as it did when it was alive and cuddly. So I didn't want to overdo the amount of fur lines. I'm also going to add a couple just spots of red here and there to make it look like it's got a little bit of a battered and bloody appearance. Do some outlining on the red, give her some pupils. And you can take the outlining as far as you want. You can outline everything or just do a little bit like I did. Do some white highlights in the eyes and on the blood and on the teeth. And then take a very narrow bit and poke as many holes as you can into that clear dome without damaging the clear dome to the point where it falls apart. So just poke drill as many holes as you can. It's kind of depends on your e-file. It depends on how thick the dome was. There's just different factors. So kind of keep an eye on it and be careful. So now I'm going to scoop up some white lace paste or plastilin gel, and I'm going to roll it into a long snake shape. If you happen to have a pink or red lace paste or plastilin gel, that would work better than the white. I don't. I only have white and black, so I may do with what I have. The other thing to keep in mind is that you really should be wearing gloves for this process. So now that you have this really, really long piece, you're going to zigzag it back and forth across the brains. So you might want to use a silicone tool or a little metal spatula or whatever you have available to help get this shape in. So just zigzag this back and forth. You don't want sharp edges on your zigzags, just really soft little squiggle lines. And the other thing to bear in mind is that you need to make sure at least some of those holes that you made in the clear dome are still exposed. So as you're going back and forth, as you can see, I'm leaving a couple little holes, and every once in a while I'll take the point of my silicone tool and I'll make sure that those holes are still open just by kind of pushing the silicone tool in and keeping them as free as possible. So before you cure, especially, just make sure that some of those holes are still available. And then I'm going to be painting over the brains with a pink acrylic paint. Like I said, if your plastilin gel is a color already that's appropriate, like red or pink, this particular stage can be skipped. However, if you are using white like I am and you are applying a color on top, I would probably go with acrylic paint versus a gel paint or gel polish because it's the least likely to plug the holes of the dome. So if you don't have acrylic paint to use and you are using one of those other things, just be very careful that you don't accidentally plug all your holes so that your blood has nowhere to, ooze out of. I'm going to do some shading on the brains with some red, just a little bit, and then I'll apply a layer of matte top coat over the kitty cat, and then we can begin the fun part of adding the blood effects. So I'm going to cut off the end of the pipette so it's the right length and fits into that hole perfectly, and then pour some fake blood into just a small dish. You don't need a lot. Then squeeze the pipette and fill it as completely as you can with that fake blood. Then gently just clean off the end so that there isn't any blood residue. And then take some clear builder gel, and I'm going to be applying a pretty generous amount right around the edge of that pipette. And then take that without squeezing it and put it in the hole behind the nail, and then cure it in place, and then that is it. If you want to apply a little bit more builder gel just around that so it doesn't leak at all, that might be a good idea. But that is it. Now you can have that wonderful moment that you have been waiting for where you get to squeeze the pipette and watch the blood come out. Oh, I absolutely love making these nails. I have a couple in the past that I've done too. Last year I made one that was a skull where the blood came out the eyes. I'll put a link to that in the description box below because it was amazing. So check that one out if you missed it. And don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future Halloween videos as well. Bye!